Whether you're opening your first credit card or getting your fifth one, correctly climbing the credit card ladder is one of the best ways to build your credit, maximize your credit card benefits, perks for free flights and travels. And here are the 5 levels of the credit card ladder you need to know. First, the floor level. This is for people who are just starting out and have no credit score. We all start here, and sometimes people find it hard to actually get a credit card at this level, mainly because they try to get a card that actually requires you to have some sort of credit score, which is okay, and that's a common mistake I find many people make. But there are 3 types of cards that are much easier to get approved for at this level, like a student, secured, or a credit card from your personal bank. Student cards are credit cards that are normally targeted for students that just finished high school. Secured cards are credit cards that are secured, so they normally have some sort of deposit around $50 to $200, and that's normally refundable. And cards from your specific bank are normally entry-level cards that your bank will recommend through the mail. If you're not a student and your bank is a mainstream bank, then this is one that I normally recommend first. However, if you don't have a mainstream bank, then the secured card is the next one I would go with. When you're at this level, your main goal should be to build your credit, which I find normally takes about 3 months to really do before you have a starting foundation. But how do you actually build your credit? Well, when you're at this level, it's pretty simple, but you do have to be cautious because it's also simple to mess up. Your first credit card is going to give you a spending limit. It'll most likely be a few $100s, but just because they give you a few $100s to spend doesn't mean you should be spending it all at once. As a matter of fact, at this level, I would simply put a subscription on the card like Spotify, Apple Music, and set up auto pay to pay off the credit card on time and in full every single month. This is an easy way to build your credit by spending no more than $20 a month, because the most important thing you want to do is make sure that you don't miss any payments. But if you do miss payment by mistake, make sure to pay off your card immediately. Credit card companies normally don't report payments for at least 30 days, so you might be able to save your credit if this does happen. But again, this is why I suggest setting up auto payment, paying off your card on time and in full, just to make a good habit of keeping yourself in good financial shape. With that said, there are 2 cards at this level I would normally recommend. The first is the Capital One Platinum. This is a secured card for those that are not students, and the second one is the Capital One. Both of these are great starter cards, and one of the main reasons why I like Capital One as a starting point compared to other cards is because Capital One has a slew of financial products from savings accounts to car loans, so this is a great way to build a relationship with them for the future. I'll actually leave a link to these cards in the description so you guys can learn more about them. Now, if you don't love Capital One, there's always a third route that you can go, which is opening a card with your personal bank, like Chase. Chase has a Freedom Rise, which you only need $250 in your bank account to open this starter card. Once you've opened the card, as I mentioned, it takes about 3 months for other credit card companies to consider you as having a good foundation. And if you want to check on your credit score, most of these companies have a credit score tracker in their app. But if yours doesn't, I also like the SoFi Credit Tracker in their app, which is free to use. With this said, you don't want to stay at this level for too long, as the credit cards on this level don't really have any great cash back or even benefits. I would say once you have the 3 months under your belt, it's about time to move on to the beginner level. The beginner level is for people with at least a 620 credit score, which when you start out is very doable. At this level, you should be eligible for multiple cashback credit cards at pretty much every major bank. You won't necessarily be eligible for some of the travel cards, but there are still some really good options that you can choose from that will help you in the future. But before we get into the cards, there are some things at this level you'll have to do to make sure you're able to move on to the next level. First things first, when you're selecting your card from the same bank as the first card that you got, you'll have the option to upgrade that card. And most people will tell you that there's no downside to upgrading, but that depends on the card because you could be missing out on potential bonuses that you can receive if you opened up a new card instead. For example, with the Chase Freedom Rise, if you upgrade to Freedom Flex or Unlimited, you could be missing out on the cash bonus of $200 when you spend $500 in the first 3 months. This is effectively 40% off the spend of that threshold. In addition to that, having multiple cards open in the long run could increase your average credit age when you need it the most in the future to get a car or a mortgage loan. Now, on the other hand, upgrading instead of opening a new card does have its benefits. Since you'll upgrade, you won't have to worry about the credit card company ever closing out your account from not using it, which if you didn't know is part of your credit score, which is based on how long you have the credit lines open. And if you're inactive on one line and the company closes it out, then that can have a negative impact on your credit age, lowering your score. This is why I normally suggest with your first card to put a simple subscription on it like Spotify and set up that auto pay to let the credit history build, but the choice is yours. With that said, let's talk about the credit cards you can open at the beginner level. Now, I mentioned the Chase Freedom Flex before, and that's because it has some great cashback benefits like 5% back on rotational categories every quarter, 5% through the Chase Travel Portal, 3% on drugstores and dining out, and 1% back everywhere else. In addition to that, this card also has a $0 annual fee, which at this level is perfect. Next, you also have the Chase Freedom Unlimited, which allows you to earn 5% back through the Chase Travel Portal, 3% on drugstores and dining out, and instead of that 5% on rotational categories, they have a 1.5% back everywhere else. But if you don't want a Chase card, Capital One also has great beginner-friendly cards, like the Capital One Quicksilver. This card is simple with 1.5% cash back on everything, and it also has no foreign transaction fees to make up for the other spending categories Chase has. In addition to that, there's also a $200 bonus when you spend $500 in the first 3 months of account opening. These 3 cards are great for beginners, and honestly, I even use some of these still this day because it's hard to get that type of match. But with that said, this is just the beginner stage, and I say the length of time you want to stay at this level is around 6 months to a year. After about a year, you should have built your credit score up enough so that you can move past these cards. But if you're really good at maintaining your credit, especially at keeping a low utilization from paying off your card on time and in full, you could see yourself moving on in as low as 6 months. Don't beat yourself up if you're at the stage for longer because everyone moves at their own pace. Which brings me to the central level. This is where we can finally start cooking. We're talking annual perks, metal cards, and even some lounge access. In the central level, this is where your credit score should be at least 680 to 730. At this level, you should be practicing very good financial habits like paying off your card on time and in full. You should have some sort of app tracking your credit history with a full breakdown. And most importantly, you should be ready to move on from a cashback card to a points card. If you didn't know, credit cards can normally earn you 2 things, cashback or points. So what's the difference? Well, with a cashback card, you can normally only earn 1 to 5% back on your spends. But with a points card, you can normally earn credit card points that can be converted to things like cashback, airline miles, or hotel points. Now, the value tends to get a bit confusing, especially for beginners, but just think of it as points are flexible currency that can be worth more than just simple cashback. And here's an example. Let's say you've earned 3% cashback on either of the Chase Freedom cards for a spend of $100. So you earned $3. But at the center tier with cards like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, you can earn 3x points on that same $100 of spends, so 300 points. Those 300 points are worth around $300 for cash back, but when you redeem them through the Chase Travel Portal, they're worth around $3.75, so 25% more than if you had redeemed them for just cash back. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, trust me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. For me personally, I like to always try to at least double the value of my points to get a maximum of at least 6% back on my spends. So for that same $100 spend, that would be $6 back instead. And I know you're probably wondering, how do I do that? Well, I'll explain that in a second. With that said, there are 3 cards on this level that I really like. The first I already mentioned, which is the Chase Sapphire Preferred. This is a $95 a year annual fee card that has some great spending categories like 3x points on select streaming services, including Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and most other primary streaming services. You can also earn 3x on online grocery orders, excluding Target, Walmart, and wholesale clubs, so think supermarkets, not big box retailers. Then you can also earn 3x on dining, 2x on travel, and 5x on travel inside the Chase Travel Portal after you use your credits. Which I forgot to mention that all the cards on this level have some sort of perk that's not just including the cashback or points. Like for this card, there's a $50 annual hotel credit, plus 12-month subscription to DoorDash for Dash Pass, which provides $0 delivery fees, 5% credit for pickup orders, and access to exclusive menu items and special offers. That benefit will expire in December 2027 though, so keep that in mind for the future. Plus, like most cards at this level, this card has a 60,000 point bonus when you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months of account opening. Those points are worth around $750 towards travel, so it's a great way to start your travel card experience. The second card on the center tier is the Capital One Venture. This is another $95 annual fee card, but comes with some different benefits that the Preferred doesn't have. Like to start, the Venture provides 5x miles on hotels and rental cars booked through the Capital One Travel Portal, and 2x on everything else. In addition to that, you'll also have $50 experience credit for Capital One Lifestyle Collection, and $100 credit for a global entry or TSA PreCheck, which when you first start off traveling isn't 100% necessary, but the more and more you travel, the more of a benefit this really becomes. This credit does renew every 4 years, so you won't have to worry about the card only paying for it once. Plus, this is one card at this level that has limited lounge access of 2 entries per year to the Capital One or Plaza Premium lounges up until December 2024. Now, like the preferred card, this also has an intro bonus of 75,000 points when you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months of account opening, and those points are worth around $750 towards travel. Another great bonus. The last card of this level is the American Express Gold card, and is definitely the best dining card of this level, because even though it's a $325 a year annual fee card, it allows you to earn 4x points at restaurants, 4x points at supermarkets. Plus, like the other cards, you also have reoccurring benefits, including $10 a month for Uber/Uber Eats, $10 for Grubhub, Cheesecake Factory, or Five Guys, $7 a month for Dunkin', and a $50 semi-annual credit for Resy. Just like with the other cards, this one also has an intro bonus of 60,000 points when you spend $6,000 in the first 6 months of account opening, and those points are worth around $600 towards travel. So not as much as the other 2 cards, but this card's benefits are hard to beat. With that said, at this level, I'd say you might find yourself here for around 1 to 2 year range. But I also find that many non-credit card savvy people tend to find themselves at this level for even longer, which is completely fine. However, there are better options out there, especially as your credit score starts to increase. Now, before we move on to the advanced level, if you want to check out any of these cards, I'll leave a link to them in the description that helps support the channel. So if you do choose to use my link, thanks in advance. Now, let's get to the advanced level. At this level, you'll find that the minimum credit score you'll need is around 730 all the way up to 800. At this point in your credit journey, there are very few cards that aren't available to you. In addition to that, at this point, you'll also see that you can get lower interest rates on car loans and mortgages, and you'll most likely meet the credit requirements for basically any apartments doing credit checks. Now, at this point, there's pretty much only one type of credit card that should even grace your fingertips, and that's premium travel cards. These are metal cards that have hundreds of dollars of benefits, amazing 24/7 concierge service, and that also desired unlimited airport lounge access. All the cards at this level do have an annual fee that normally range from $400 to $700, but those benefits I mentioned should cover the annual fee if you plan on making use of them. With that said, the first premium card at this level is the Capital One Venture X. This is a $395 annual fee card that allows you to earn 10x miles on hotels and rental cars, as well as 5x on flights booked through the Capital One travel portal, then 2x on everything else. So an upgrade from the Venture. And like the Venture, you can also use a $100 credit for a global entry or TSA PreCheck. In addition to that, the card also has a $300 annual travel credit and 10,000 anniversary miles after your first year, which is equivalent to around $100 of travel. So you can see that the annual benefits of this card outweigh the annual fee by around $5. In addition to all of that, this card also has access to the Capital One, Plaza Premium, and Party Pass lounges with room for 2 guests per visit. Plus, that's not to mention the welcome offer this card also has of 75,000 bonus miles when you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months of account opening, which again is worth around $750 to travel. Now, if you're looking for a more premium card, this is one of the cheapest ones with the travel benefits that you can rely on. With that said, there are other cards that have better benefits, more lounge access, and are just overall stronger in my opinion, like the Chase Sapphire Reserve. This $550 a year annual fee card allows you to earn 10x points on hotels and rental cars, and 5x points on flights booked through the Chase travel portal, then 3x on dining and travel outside their portal. And remember, with Chase, more premium cards have point values that are higher. In this case, the points are worth around 50% more when redeemed for travel. In addition to that, this card also provides you with a $300 annual travel credit that can be used outside of their travel portal on pretty much anything travel related: hotels, flights, taxis, even tolls. Plus, just like with the other cards so far, this card also comes with a credit for a global entry or TSA PreCheck. And I know this card is sounding very similar to the Venture X, so what makes this card so much better? Well, with the Venture X, while it's true that you have access to airport lounges, Capital One only has 3 lounges available currently in Dallas, Denver, and DC. And of these 3, Capital One isn't known for having the most innovative lounges. However, with Chase on the other hand, you have the same access to the Priority Pass, as well as 4 reserve lounges, 2 in New York, 1 in Boston, and 1 in Hong Kong. With the newest one, Chase just opened in New York, that's massive. and it shows the direction that Chase is going with their lounges. In addition to that, Chase also has a Terrence open in Austin, an outdoor bar/lounge in downtown Manhattan. Plus, they have great partnerships with Hyatt, which allows you to transfer points from your card to the Hyatt portal. And your points can be redeemed for some insane value. So whenever you see someone on social media and they're vacationing, especially at a Hyatt resort, they probably took advantage of the sweet point bonuses that you can get with Chase and Hyatt. Or they combine that partnership with the introductory bonus for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which currently sits at 60,000 points when you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months of account opening. And those points, since they're worth 50% more, are worth around $900 of travel. With that said, there is still one more card that has more yearly benefits, more lounge access, more hotel status upgrades, and that's the Platinum Card by American Express. This is by far one of my favorite cards and probably known as one of the best premium travel cards out there, and that's because with the $695 annual fee, it also has some great spending categories like 5x points on flights booked directly through airlines, 5x on prepaid hotels booked through AmexTravel.com, then 1x on everything else. Each of those points is worth around 1 cent each towards travel, so keep that in mind when redeeming them. In addition to that, this card also has over $1,500 in annual benefits, like $200 in Uber Cash, a $200 airline incidental fee credit, and a $200 hotel credit. And speaking of hotels, this card also comes with upgrade status to the Marriott Gold Elite status, which normally requires 25 nights stay, and the Hilton Honors Gold status, which normally requires 40 nights. These statuses provide you with late checkout, dining credits, and upgraded rooms when available, which, think about how much you would have to spend just to get that status. It's definitely more than the annual fee of this card. Plus, if that wasn't enough, this card also comes with a plethora of insurances, a credit for Global Insurer TSA PreCheck, and access to the Priority Pass and Centurion lounges, which out of all the cards on this level definitely makes it the best in my opinion. Now, if you're looking at this as a potential go-to travel card, it does have an 80,000 point bonus when you spend $8,000 in the first 6 months of card membership. Remember, those points are worth around 1 cent each towards travel, meaning that this is about an $800 value. With that said, let's move on to the Prestige level. If you can't tell by the name, the Prestige level is for the upper of the upper class, because not only do you need a 800 plus credit score to attain any of these cards we're going to talk about, but you'll also need an enormous spend on a specific card or a certain net worth in order to attain these cards. What's enormous? Well, I'm talking at least 7 figures of yearly spend on a singular card. Plus, even with that, these cards are invite only, which is why this is called the Prestige level. Now, there are 2 cards specifically that you can have at this level, and that's the American Express Centurion Black Card and the JP Morgan Reserve. Starting with the JP Morgan Reserve, this card is pretty similar to the Chase Sapphire Reserve, but one of the biggest differences is that it requires you to have at least $10 million in assets managed by JP Mortgage Private Banking. So if you have that lying around, it should be no big deal. But seriously, this is basically just the Chase Sapphire Reserve, except it's invite only. From the 3x points on dining to the $300 annual travel credit, the only main difference is that with this card, you have access to some exclusive VIP events, but that's pretty much it. So how's this compared to the American Express Centurion Black Card? Well, starting off, this card doesn't require $10 million to be held by American Express, but it does require a spend of at least $100,000 a month on the Platinum Card. No big deal, right? Except for the fact that it also has a hefty annual fee of $5,000 and then an initiation fee of $10,000, which, I mean, if it's not one thing, then it's another, am I right? So what do you get with this card? Well, besides for basically all of the benefits of the Platinum Card, you'll also receive what's called a white glove service, meaning anything you need, the concierge service will take care of. For example, there's a story of one Black Card holder's son needing sand for his school project, but he didn't want just any sand, he wanted sand from that specific desert. And what's wild is that the Black Card team got the sand and flew it to him. But remember that these are just credit cards. You're not more or less important no matter the level that you're on. Which leads me to something that you've got to start understanding. If you're really going to start climbing the credit card ladder, we've covered the basics. But if you actually want to know about the cards that I keep in my personal wallet and why, click here. I'll see you in that video. Bye.